Welcome back to My Mom's Basement, ladies and gentlemen. I am here with the Heartbreak Kid, Mr. WrestleMania himself, Shawn Michaels. He's got a new biography on A&E coming this Sunday at 8. I can't wait for this because, Shawn, your documentary that came out now over a decade ago, Heartbreak and Triumph, is one of my favorite documentaries that the WWE has ever produced. I feel like that is a big strength of the company, too, in telling these stories, telling the stories of their legends. And I wanted to know, is it weird for you to watch this stuff about yourself because you lived it all, or is it fun? Is it do you like watching that stuff?
So yes, it is weird for me. So yeah, I especially now, I've really grown away from again stuff like wanting to, the desire to be on TV has gone the opposite direction for me now, and so uh, especially when I look back now, I have nothing in common with the person that I was back then. And so it really is. It's very strange. It helps now. The first one, Heartbreak and Triumph that you're speaking of, it was not too long after, again, at least, getting married and having a child and the very beginning of a new life for me. And so it felt a little bit, I didn't, you don't know what the future holds. It was fun. It was exciting, but there was still so much more ahead of me. Now we're talking, many, a decade or so later. And now I'm able to see everything in the rearview mirror. And I've seen our children grow. I've seen my life continue to grow and get better. My relationships, my marriage, my children, for those relationships to be strengthened and emboldened, and even from a life in wrestling to been able to complete what I started. Um, there were a lot more question marks back when Heartbreak and Triumph came out. And now many of those questions have been answered. And so, like I said, there's is a peace now that, as we say in my little world, a peace that surpasses any understanding. Because again, I now have the ability to feel like I've crossed the finish line, and I'm very happy with that finish.
I think you should be as well. I mean, your retirement is, I think, the greatest in wrestling history. And the only one that I would say holds a candle to it is Ric Flair's, which you were also involved in. So you were involved in, I think, two of the greatest retirements in wrestling and WrestleMania history. Now that you're a coach at NXT and I assume, are you at your office down at the Performance
I
Center right
am.
now?
So yeah, we have TV today. So yeah, I am here at work.
I love that. I feel like I got the inside scoop. I'm like in the the bowels of the arena right now with Shawn Michaels. Do you ever watch your own stuff back when like from a coaching capacity of being like, oh, let me watch that and maybe I could impart this on someone else? Or is it completely what you remember from the business? Like, what is your coaching style like in NXT?
So when I was coaching on a much more regular basis, I did find so I because I've never watched my stuff with people. I was very uncomfortable doing that. When I did it, it would be I'd do it one time. It would usually be right after whatever pay-per-view or Raw, whatever the case may be, or a WrestleMania. I'd have them burn me at that time, everybody, a DVD, and then um, and I'd go home, I'd watch it once, I'd take my notes mentally, and then that would be it. I wasn't one of those guys that poured over his stuff a lot, because I always felt this business was evolving and growing and moving, and always pressing forward. Um, but I did have to get over that when I started coaching a number of guys that now grew up with me, and some of my matches were, there were lessons in there. There were things, and also when I found that I was able to connect with them on a mental and an emotional level, both professionally and personally, by letting them understand where I was at in that match and the stuff I went through. I think that was one of the, aside from the X's and O's that I was able to, I don't know, sometimes connect for them. I think what connected most with them was where I was at personally and emotionally going into these matches, and where you come out of them again, always striving for more, striving for perfection. Understand that there were always nerves and expectations, and to deal with that, and to convince them that there was never a thought that they had in their mind that I didn't have. And I always wanted them to at least know that there was somebody that was affirming everything that they were going through. This business is hard enough just in the physical sense. The mental and emotional stuff can also be difficult. And that was something that I wanted to make sure that I helped them with as well, And so I guess that's one of the things I probably got a lot closer to a lot of these guys than I think they expected at first. But now being on the other side, I think we all appreciate it a little bit more. But I guess a long-winded way to answer your question. Yeah, we did, but at the same time, not a lot of them. Because I always felt it was better to watch their stuff. And everything that I did was what once was, you know what I mean? And I wanted them to focus on continuing to press forward, to grow and evolve in this line of work. Because to me, that's what drives this business and drives success.
Absolutely. But I think they even have in NXT the same mentality that a lot of you guys had back then. And we want to steal the show. We want to go out there and we don't care who's in the main event. If I'm in the opening match, I want to make sure that they remember me. And that's one of the things the fans love the most about NXT. Every takeover, it truly feels like every single person that steps through the curtain wants to make that their night, wants to make it so they steal the show. I wanted to know, as their coach, do you have anyone down there that you say, they really remind me of like a young Shawn Michaels, whether it comes from a mentality or a wrestling standpoint?
Well, so I think there have been a number of guys and people have commented on it here and there. I mean, there are some senses, and I apologize, I'm getting other messages.
No, it's fine. I'm sure it's
So,
much more important than this. I'm sure it's Triple H, you know.
But so I think the easy one, obviously, for everybody is Adam Cole.
Yeah.
And Adam Cole is one of those people that we have similarities, not just physical, but also there are things, he has that attribute that you say, well, Adam Cole just has it. And
Yeah.
you can't define what that is, but he's got a mixture of all of it, and he's just good and he's consistent all the time. But then you have guys like a Johnny Gargano, who to me, I think in the ring is far more, he can do more well-rounded than I ever was. But he has the mentality that he's going to go out there. If Johnny's on the show, your work's going to be cut out for you. It's just that simple, he's not going to give you any breathing room. And that's what so we are there. Are a number of guys. Tommaso's the same way, but a completely different style. A lot of times Tommaso and I, because he's a little bit more rougher around the edges than everybody else, but he and I connect on a mental level because I understand sort of his. And I never want people to misunderstand this, but his is more an aggressive passion like mine was when I was younger. But I absolutely understand that and I appreciate that. So again, honestly, there are so many different attributes of so many guys that I can connect with because, as I said, I try to let them know that there isn't anything mentally or emotionally that they're going to go through that I haven't thought about. And I want them to know that it's okay. You know what I mean? Nothing, it doesn't make you weird, doesn't make you insecure, doesn't make you anything. I will be honest with you about it and say that I did have it. And truth be told, all the guys that say they didn't are lying. So it's just important that they know that.
Did you have someone like that in your career when you were young that could stand there and say, "Hey, Shawn, like I've been there for that," or no?
No, yeah, no, that was the thing. It was a very different time. You didn't show that. You didn't show a chink in your armor. There were no dents. There was a tough, very in control veneer. And I would go back and I know it's sort of a controversial group, but the Kliq, that's why we all gravitated together because we could be open and honest with each other. And those guys, again, we did. It was a real friendship. That's why it still lasts today. That's why there's never been any professional jealousy or any of that kind of stuff within the group because it was an honest and open about the things that you're going like, is this weird to anybody or is it just weird to me? And they're like, no, so, but you didn't get a lot of that back in, and again, it sounds like the old timer stuff back in my day, but it was, it was a much more tougher, more bravado type atmosphere, and heaven forbid you didn't feel that way all the time 24/7. And so, like I said, it was just something that's what brought us together back then. And I think that's what helps me at least, and even Hunter now, and all of us here at, at the Performance Center down here in Orlando, we all connect on that level. And that's why the culture here is so positive. That's why, again, you don't hear a lot of people not wanting to be with NXT for any bad reasons. It's always them reluctantly moving on, so to speak. They're happy about it, but at the same time, uh, nobody complains about being here.
No, some people want to come back. Look at Finn Balor, right? He's like,
Yeah.
let me back in, pounding on the Performance Center door. I wanted to ask you about what you enjoy doing as a coach. Now, I don't know if you may have just answered that by saying you like talking to the performers about the mentality and really the emotional part of wrestling. But if I'm saying, Shawn Michaels, you got a day at the Performance Center, I want you to go coach this big group of talent. Would you rather sit down and do psychology with them and talk about putting together a match? Would you rather get in the ring and say, hey, show me something and I'll sort of tweak things here and there? Or would you rather sit down with them and do promo class? Like, what does Shawn Michaels enjoy doing as a coach?
So when I was coaching on a regular basis, one of the things I found is that I didn't set an agenda. And much like when I went with my matches, I just went into every one of my matches with a very open mind, believe it or not. But because I knew my strengths was always adjusting and adapting sort of on the fly and in the moment. And so I never wanted to sort of set anything in place for fear that you might be teaching someone the wrong way, the wrong thing. Each one of our people learn a different way, have different attributes. So I never like to have a blanket sort of, I don't know, one size fits all, mentality to it. And so that's what it was with sort of, when you made it to Sean's class, so to speak, it was all over the place because we were just, I was getting to have such really complete and sound performers that now it was just about, you know, picking apart these little areas, and all of them were different, and all of them were different for each individual. And so we just, it was spending a lot of time um, on that guy and whatever it might be, and then moving to this person, and it could be a whole, different ball of wax. But everybody else in there, we always felt like was always picking up something because it either filled a gap you didn't, have filled, or it answered a, at least a question that you didn't know you had.
Now we see you sitting next to Triple H for the actual takeover events, for the NXT events. We see some backstage footage sometimes, whether it be like WWE 24 or any of the documentaries. And my favorite stuff in the world is you and Triple H after a match, like shaking each other, like, that was so awesome. I can't believe it. And just seeing that, like, you guys are still fans is amazing for us. Like, you guys can still get excited over the same stuff that we do. So when you were back with Triple H in those vans with the Kliq, could you ever imagine that the two of you would be in this kind of position? I know you always talked about, hey, we'll run the business one day, but like now looking back, do you go, there was some hints of that, or is this just a crazy journey?
So that was something you were saying out of, just sort of immature bravado. You know what I mean? I don't, I certainly never, not like this. I mean, and that's the thing is because, and that's why we're back there jumping around because that's also another thing that brought us all together is that we all realized that this was, a great living, just a fantastic way, working with your buddies, tearing down the house, traveling the world. And now we're here, you know, we're still wrestling fans. We still love every aspect of it, but now we're watching other people have their success and have their moments. It is easily the best part about this job is now beginning to watch again the Johnny Garganos, the Adam Coles, and regardless of whether they watch me or not, now understanding, and when you get to know all these people, their various dreams and desires and passions, and you're able to watch them fulfill that and watch again the joy and just the satisfaction on their face, and to know that you were a little part of that is absolutely the greatest thing in the world. And again, it's no different than, again, when my son graduated, and again, it's at least helping someone, and giving them the foundation to make their life what they want it to be. And that's the most satisfying thing in the world to me. And we get to do it here, on a regular basis. And it's hard not to get excited about it, because again, I still enjoy this stuff. And as you say, I'm still a wrestling fan, and I'm never growing out of that. And I've been fortunate enough to never have to grow up a day in my life. And, it's hard not to be giddy about that on a regular basis.
I'm so excited about that. I hope you and Triple H especially stick around, just the two of you together forever in wrestling, and you guys will make great stuff together. I've got an actual match of yours that I would love to ask you about, and it's the match with Mankind at War Games, or Mind Games. I'm sorry. It's an all-time classic, and it for a long time felt like almost a hidden gem. But then the network era comes around, and everyone is like, "Man, this is the match!" Like people were not even paying attention to this back then. They should have been. What do you remember about that match now?
Well, so again, just so in the moment, even that. So Mick is one of the few guys that everybody else, you at least had a number of times, or at least a couple times on the road working with each other, and almost always cross paths. Mick and I really didn't. And it was just one of those really abstract, out of the blue matches that was just sort of set in there. And again, he had a different style, clearly, than anybody else. The champion, and you got to figure out how you can adapt to that. But he's also he's in a storyline. This was sort of a holding place for kind of both of us as we were on treks to different stories. And so it was just really that odd placement. And it really was, as you said, for a long time, it was just this hidden gem that was so fantastic, but it was such an entity unto itself that I think people brushed past it.
Yeah.
And so again, it was just really the process, and Mick really not thinking outside the box for him. It was he knew his character. He knew it really well. And the things he wanted to do put my character in a place where he just hadn't been. And I don't think any of us really knew at the time, but it was so vital for me to have at that time.
Yeah.
The timing of it couldn't have been more perfect for me. So again, it's two guys adapting and adjusting to one another, on a very, I don't know, very even, very level basis. Both guys, this job can be very easy, really, at its core. But usually you only have that with your best friends, because there's always some form of other emotion getting in the way.
Yeah.
And Mick is one of those people that never hung around, didn't know. Again, professionally, casually, all of that, fine, easy. I mean, but it's you still were in separate parts of the dressing room. He didn't really run with anybody, I don't think,
Yeah.
and so again, but still, when you get together, there's a chemistry there that you go like, huh, who'd have thunk it? It just, again, where those opposites attract, and then you create something that even in and of itself just sits totally alone by itself, but stands out in a really good way. And so it's really just an odd pairing, but in a fantastic way. And I think that's why it'll always be special, because there's no storyline to it. There's no follow-up to it. And I really do. I think it's one of those matches, again, even now, especially in today's year, where you go, well, didn't that end in a disqualification? And it's like, heaven forbid you do those now. I mean, you couldn't do that without people just.
But I know, the internet, right?
Yeah, well, and again, and look, and I understand it, because it may not play the same now. So that's what even made it special for that moment in time. It was absolutely one of those perfect things that just sits there. And had you done more with it, that might have messed it up, or might have ruined the specialness of it. So again, it was just so many combinations. When they say, like, when the stars align and everything comes together, that was one of those moments. And again, and thankfully over time, people have really come to appreciate that match for what I think it really was.
Absolutely. If you're listening to this or watching this interview and you haven't seen this match, it's a must watch. Go on Peacock right now. Do it, if you're working, forget your work. Go watch Shawn Michaels versus Mankind. Shawn, this has been an absolute pleasure for me. Been a fan my whole life. I was you for Halloween when I was 8 years old, and I got in
Uh,
trouble for laying the sucket just like everyone else did. So this has been awesome. Thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it. And
yeah,
everyone
you
check out
bet. Yeah,
Shawn
yeah,
Michaels'
my pleasure.
biography this Sunday.
Yeah, that's very nice. And again, I absolutely do appreciate that. And I'm a silly, whatever, sentimental old man now. So that it is that stuff means a lot to me, and I appreciate you giving us the time.
There's little
Here we
Robbie
are,
Fox
ru-
laying
ru-
laying the sucket, of course.
ruining another generation successfully. I'm thrilled about it.
Shawn, thank you so much.